And welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm David Gornoski, your host, and riding shotgun today is my friend physicist Dr. Yu. He's in the house here. And we're speaking with my good friend, former NYPD detective John Baeza, who is the founder of a website called nypdtruth.com, where he works as a consultant to help solve situations which are difficult to solve in the realm of criminal justice. And in the previous segment, John was mentioning his experience as a young corrections officer and how drugs were freely flowing in and out of prison, even in a maximum security system like Sing Sing. But then, John, you joined the law enforcement as a narcotics detective later on, isn't that right?
Yeah, later on, after I worked for about 3 years on patrol in the 32nd Precinct, which is in Harlem, then I transferred over to the narcotics division, where I worked in Manhattan North Narcotics as an undercover officer. Now, undercover not meaning plain clothes, but meaning a real undercover. No, we didn't carry an ID card. We didn't, identify ourselves as police. We couldn't go into the front of a precinct. We, used the back door of the courtroom, that kind of thing. That kind of undercover.
And you were in Harlem during the 80s crack epidemic. This is the hysteria where this was running wild, a lot of violence. So you're right in the middle of that, aren't you?
Yes. So I worked in a precinct less than 1 square mile in size, and there were approximately 60 to 70 homicides per year in that less than 1 square mile. And in fact, in that precinct, more police officers than any other precinct in New York City have been killed in the line of duty, which is 26 in that small precinct over the years. So it's a very, very dangerous and violent precinct. And in fact, I worked in the same area and did a couple buys in the same precinct when I went into narcotics as an undercover officer.
If you'd like to speak with John Baeza, you can do it at 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. So, John, tell us, you had kind of a road to Damascus experience where you're working years in the narcotics division as an undercover detective. What was that kind of conversion moment when you realized this is not working? I need to do something different.
Well, I guess it had come after about 3 years working as an undercover. I've made hundreds of undercover buys, from the street level buy to, buying pounds of cocaine and guns and so forth. And in this particular case, I was purchasing about $16,000 or so of heroin, and I went to I had made some purchases from the same guy. And when I went to the third floor of the building with this guy, I never carried a gun with me because if we went inside to an apartment, they would always pat you down and take your gun. And even if they didn't think you were a cop, they give it back to you at the end. But I didn't want them to have my gun because I knew it worked. So I wouldn't carry a gun. So I was unarmed, and he pulled out a gun on me. He said, "This is the end of the line for you," and he used an expletive. He put the gun to my head. I felt the metal. I knew it was a real gun. And, I gave him the money that I had. I had some money. I had the mindset of a drug dealer and a drug user. I had some money stuffed in my socks and stuff, which I didn't give to him because I had forgotten it. I put it there, but I had money in my pockets, and I'd give him the money because it was just money, But he wouldn't leave until he wanted me to turn around, and I knew in my heart, and he later confessed to the detectives that he was going to shoot me in the back of the head, but he couldn't shoot me looking at me. And I instinctively, I kind of knew that, it's very difficult for people to shoot somebody else in the face as opposed to the back of the head. So I refused to turn around. We had a little bit of a struggle. He ran down the stairs. He escaped in a car. I ran out. My field team came eventually, but they were, they had, it's no blame on them, but they had to be at least 2 blocks away. So they were too far away to even do anything. And when they did show up, the guy was gone. Eventually, they caught him. And on that same day in Newark, New Jersey, another undercover officer was actually killed in the line of duty in Newark, New Jersey. And that's the event in my life, not just my police career, but in my whole life, that changed the way I thought about pretty much everything, especially the drug war. I felt it was unnecessary. I felt that why should we be risking our lives and enforcing this law when people are willingly putting something into their own body, and and they're not, they may be harming themselves, which is a problem when we could deal with privately. But I didn't think we needed to have police or government interfere with that, and it really changed my life and the way I thought, and it changed the whole course of my career as well.
So now you transferred to the Special Victims Unit, and you tell me, how many people were in that victim unit? They're working on really violent crimes about women and children, and how many people were working on that versus the drug war department?
I would say in Manhattan Special Victims Squad, I think when I was there were approximately 22 detectives working probably 4,000 cases a year, including child abuse and rape and all kinds of felony sexual assault cases, and child abuse cases, you have to remember as well as some sexual homicides. And that's 22 detectives, whereas the entire narcotics, just for Manhattan North, we're talking about Special Victims covered just Manhattan. The Manhattan North narcotics, which covered just Manhattan North, had probably at least 300-400 detectives or police officers, one or the other, working on narcotics. And basically you're just doing a body count, wrapping up bodies, arrests every day. We call it a body count. And while my desk sat with, 30, 40 cases, and other detectives also had this very big workload with child abuse cases and very horrific, some very, very horrific crimes backlogged, these detectives were out there arresting people for really victimless, what I consider victimless crimes, where I had a real victim to deal with.
Right. So I've seen some of the cases you've commented on and looked on and been a part of. You've dealt with serial killers and serial rapists and different things like that. And, so you've got stacks of paper piled up of people with real flesh and blood wounds and real flesh and blood scarring. And there's all these resources allocated to chasing after drugs, and people have these drugs. And, we've already covered that the drugs were going into a maximum security prison. So it really seems like a fool's errand that they're chasing the win here while real victims are being penalized because the resources are allocated to this no-win drug war.
It is a fool's errand, and that's a good way to put it. That's what I felt it was. Before my epiphany, if you will, or my moment that I had when I had the gun put to my head, I was a drug warrior. I thought, we're doing the right thing. But afterwards, thinking about it, I realized this is ridiculous. And then now having the experience with special victims and working on child abuse cases and realizing, hey, we don't have the manpower to really handle all these cases that we should have. And in the meantime, all the money and all these grants and all this federal money and government money is going to narcotics and personnel and manpower and all that stuff. And we didn't have that, and it was just very frustrating for me to think about it like that. Very, very frustrating.
So you're trying to solve real flesh and blood violent crimes, and yet you can't because all the resources are being directed towards these more politically fashionable drug wars. When we had the alcohol prohibition, we saw homicide skyrocket. And then when we got rid of it, we saw it plummet. So we can see that we hate drugs. And I think if you really hate drug cartels, you are going to want to listen to what John Baeza is saying here, because he's seen firsthand how the drug war really just enables the cartels to make obscene profits while victimizing victims of real violent crimes. That's what you saw.
That's exactly what I saw. And I've had experiences later on in my after my career when I teach. I teach in Mexico sometimes, and I actually, I keep up a little bit and talk to people about what's going on in Mexico and the danger and what goes on down there with the drug trafficking. And quite frankly, you take the profit out of it, and they'll look for something else. But right now, a cartel leader making billions of dollars a year on drugs, they're going to get those drugs through no matter what. Just like they get them into the prison, they'll get them over the border. I don't care if you have a wall or whatever you do. It doesn't matter.
Wow, John, it's been fantastic speaking with you. No wonder you've been all over cable news and invited across the different places in the globe, because you really have been an inspiring figure for real criminal justice. Thank you for your time, and visit nypdtruth.com if you want to learn more about John Baeza's work. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice Radio on NewsRadio 102.5 WFLA. We'll be right back.